Welcome to Talking Business, podcast produced in Melbourne, Australia. The podcast is available on the Acast site, my website, the Apple Podcast Store, or wherever you go to get your podcasts. Or you can get it at the Business Acumen website at www.businessacumen.biz. I am Gettler. My job is to review amongst the week's business, finance, and economics. I bring it all to you every week. For the most access to economists and business leaders from around the world. Subscribe to Talking Business from my website, gettler.com, or whatever your podcast platform is. This is episode number 36 in our series for 2025. And today's date is Friday, October 17th. First, I'll be talking to Paul Goudie, CEO of Altura Learning. We'll discuss how Altura Learning has created high-quality media learning solutions for those working or aspiring to work in the residential home care sector. And I'll be talking to EY Cheryl Murphy about Australia's inflation figures and when we can expect the RBA to cut interest rates. But first, let's talk to Paul Goudie.
Well, Paul, Altura Learning provides quality online aged care courses for care providers across Australia. And you do it by video. Is that right?
We do. So it's an important period for the business because the Royal Commission in 2019 highlighted a number of gaps in the aged care sector. And one of the key takeaways was around person-centered care and how frontline workers can be empowered to do their jobs much better. So Altura's operated for 20 years now and primarily focusing on compliance and being able to sort of meet the core skills. For us, it's a great opportunity to use that now as a baseline and build and actually really sort of move from compliance to workforce development because it's a very large workforce. It's very diverse. A lot of English as a second language. So it's a very important time for business like Altura to support customers to build that capability at a foundational level to meet the recommendation from the new strengthening standards.
The issue is how do they take to it? Because it's such a diverse community, as you say. There are language differences.
Yes.
How do you do that?
We want to help personal care workers build a much more effective relationship with the residential aged care individual. The other interesting space, Leon, is that the government's obviously looking for more people to age in home. So that level of in-home care is attracting a new worker to the sector where they're going into people's homes and again having to sort of work and meet obligations around compliance, but also just help people, like you said, age well in home.
Yeah. The government's obviously looking to do that because it's cheaper.
Yeah.
And in a sense, a lot of people do want to age in their home.
It is. I think the other issue, and I use example, imagine at 3 o'clock and you're a registered nurse and a patient wakes up with dementia, has probably been in bed for a long time and maybe at risk of deep vein thrombosis, dehydrated, English as a second language. The increased clinical complexities in residential aged care is it's been fascinating this week reading about dementia and the extent that is now becoming a critical issue in this country. I think you'll see many residential aged care being the frontline support for these increasingly clinically complex issues that we're facing as a population. So if you are healthy, that makes perfect sense to age in home.
Right. So your work is with the frontline workers.
Correct.
And they take to it work.
Yeah, because they come into the sector with a certain threat, so they have that foundational level of knowledge that allows them to be successfully employed. And then we look to use that as a baseline in which we build and scaffold skills around sort of more complex clinical issues, but it might be things that keep them current around wound management, using hot and cold packs, how to move people safely, just make sure that we are providing with the skills that give them appropriate levels of care to residents and people in home.
Your videos, do you actually interact?
We do. We call it show and telling. It works very well in terms of the applied nature. So there's something I love seeing a registered nurse with 20 years experience safely take a pack out of a microwave, how to place it, how to check with the resident they're able to safely receive it, and so forth. So from my perspective, video is still a very powerful medium to communicate the correct process and the quick way to support and help people.
And it is totally interactive.
Well, it's interesting in the sense that we use simulation. So we try anticipate what possible scenarios a registered nurse or a personal care worker might encounter in a home, and we build that into our video so that they can anticipate what challenges they might face providing that care.
One of the big issues is a lot of the people receiving aged care, they come from diverse backgrounds.
Correct.
And there's some of them don't speak English. Or don't come from backgrounds where English has not been spoken.
Correct.
How do you handle that?
It's a good question. So we find video as a way of actually allowing people to see how they can provide care. But there are certainly a number of personal care workers that come from a diverse background as well. Many of them, so they might be able to sort of speak the native tongue of the resident. It's a good question. I think something that we've got to continue to support and understand and ask ourselves, how can we provide better care in such a multicultural workforce and where English isn't spoken language in the home, provide a level of care. So it's at the moment it's about using video, but I think we can always look at ways to do it better.
I think what I've found a lot of aged care facilities is a lot of them set up by different communities.
Correct.
And they would employ people from that community.
Yes.
Speaking that language.
Yes, that's right.
Familiar with it. Or might be familiar.
Yep. And we know there are customers who will convert our text into another language, and that's okay. But I think also the standards are communicated in English, and so that's what if an auditor was to go into a residential aged care, they've got to make sure they can demonstrate compliance. So there's a nuanced approach that needs to be taken there that recognises the native tongue, but also how they're assessed.
Now the $1 million question
Yes.
is that from November,
yes,
there's going to be major changes.
Correct.
The Aged Care Act.
Correct.
And so suddenly residents in aged will have to pay more.
Yes.
The government will be paying more.
Yes.
How will that affect your business?
So from our perspective, there are seven new standards, and some of them are quite different, and some of them are just an updated format. So we've looked at how we can provide the support to ensure care workers understand their obligations under the new standards, because we will expect to see the government auditing aged care providers. That was one of the key takeaways from the Royal Commission. And so it's our job to ensure that people have the skills that do meet the compliance obligations, but also provide the better care that ultimately was the sort of catalyst for the Royal Commission and some of the horrific stories that we've heard past 10 years ago.
Of course, there's a massive need for aged care beds.
Yes, that's right. And again, I think that's why you're seeing the narrative around in-home care and what are the scope of that as a push? What are the challenges that presents? Because when you start seeing more clinically complex issues present, how can you provide an appropriate level of intervention to support that person?
So you would see major growth in in-home care?
100%.
Right, okay.
As you said, there's just simply not enough beds at the moment.
Yeah, I know. It's about 300,000 at the moment. But it's going to be 800,000 by 2050, which is what, only 25 years away.
And I saw an article recently that one of the major operators said that if they were to open a residential aged care facility, it could take up to 10 years.
Right.
So there's almost a tsunami of people aging that are going to require beds. But even if it wasn't a question of resources in terms of dollars, just the time taken to get approval and planning and so forth is close to a decade.
Right. And of course, a lot of the aged care providers aren't operating at great profit.
Yes. I mean, I can't speak for them. My understanding though is that even those providers that do have access to capital are still constrained by simply the time taken to open a residential aged care facility. So even when you are sitting on a bit of lazy capital and you want to deploy that into beds, you're looking at a very long timeline.
Yeah, because there's a whole planning issues.
Correct. Council issues, state government, federal government. It's a big operation to open a residential aged care home right now.
But you would be working closely with aged care providers.
Correct. That's our space. So we look at how we can sort of build the confidence of the workers, the clinical quality, and I think the other thing is that we make personal care workers proud of the work that they do. They can provide a level of care that they're proud to support patients with.
Right, okay. And of course, there's a growing need for aged care workers.
Yes, that's right. And we'll continue to do so. So I think the vet sector's doing a good job at the moment of attracting and training and graduating students with the Cert 3. We look to sort of scaffold and build on those foundational skills.
So they come away quite skilled with that.
Yes, I think that certainly TAFE are doing a terrific job in teaching the foundational skills. It's 120 hours as the placement that's required for a Cert 3. So I think that a residential aged care provider can confidently recruit someone who's come through the vet sector at the moment and know that they've had good learning outcomes taught and they've had a 20-hour placement. I think it's a good number of hours to actually test and apply your learnings before you actually go into the workforce. So from my perspective, I think that's a terrific platform to build on.
And Altura will certainly be backing that up.
Absolutely, that's right. So we'll take those foundational skills and build on those.
Right. So which is good for aged care providers to know.
I think so. And I think to the credit of the government, they've done a good job of addressing some of those gaps in the vet sector that we might have seen 10 years ago. They've lifted the quality, and I think things like free TAFE have been terrific to attract people into the sector.
Well, Paul, it's been a privilege talking to you.
Thank you for your time. My pleasure. And if I can help with anything else, please let me know.
Now let's talk to EY Sherelle Murphy.
Well, Sherelle, the latest ruling from the RBA, interest rates on hold. What's interesting, their findings, they said inflation remains still elevated, and the private demand is recovering, indication inflation may persist in some areas. And the latest spending figures that show that spending's up. So people seem to be quite happy with interest rates still at 6%.
Yeah, they don't seem to be stunted by it, do they? I think the numbers are not particularly strong. So yes, spending is up, but of course it's just nominal data. So I don't know that we can read too much into it. But I think definitely there are signs that households are a bit more willing to part precious dollars than they might have been say at the beginning of the year. And you would expect that because we've had three interest rate cuts, of course, from banks since then. Real incomes are up a little bit. Financial conditions are just a bit easier, and also some households probably feeling a little wealthier because their house prices have gone up again as well. So that does translate to a slightly sort of healthier and stronger consumer. Does it mean inflation is picking up again? I don't think it necessarily does at all. Although there are a couple areas where inflation is a little hotter perhaps than the RBA thought it might be by this point. But it's the Reserve Bank is just a little cautious as it looks at those two bits of data together.
Well, Michelle, inflation is showing us in two key areas. One is housing, and the other are market services
like dining out, haircuts, recreation, car repairs, and insurance.
And video.
Yeah, some of which is discretionary type consumption, which does tend to reflect the fact that people are spending on the nice to haves rather than just the essentials. And yes, that is something perhaps they didn't think would necessarily be showing up slightly prices. So as I say, I don't think there's any sign of inflation emerging here that things are out of control. But doesn't mean RBA wants to cutting into it. Not yet anyway. And that's why they've chosen to leave the cash rate on hold.
Well, the interesting will be to see the quarterly data coming out on the 29th of October. The quarterly CPI figures.
That's right. And this is where the full picture becomes obvious because clearly the Reserve Bank doesn't target price of a haircut. In CPI, the price of just discretionary products. It wants to look at the inflation rate overall for the big basket of goods and services that we know as the CPI. So it will wait. I think probably wisely to see what that whole picture looks like when it gets that data at the end of the month. This is of course the last time that it has to wait for the quarterly data, because from here on in there will become monthly. That will be much more welcome for the Reserve Bank, because they will have more ongoing running picture of where inflation actually is at, because that quarterly data becomes monthly. But at the moment, yes, it's sort of playing it cool, so to speak.
Well, the question is whether we're going to have a update or whether we're going to see something later this year. Traders are banking on a cut in February.
That's right. The market has kind of really calmed down in terms of expectations of when the next rate cut might come through. It was prior to this week's events, as you say, looking for the market collectively was looking for a rate cut in November, the November meeting, which is on the 4th of November. But now because of little tiny hits of inflation plus the caution the Reserve Bank is expressing in its own language, push that right back to February. There is a meeting in December. It could potentially be in December, but as you say, it's kind of playing it. The market has changed its view on exactly when that will occur. So that doesn't mean to say, of course, the market's correct. It's still possible that the Reserve Bank does make a move in November. But I just think so much of it is going to depend on that inflation data and how comfortable it is that it's in the target band. There are no signs that it will be back above the target band of 2 to 3%.
Right. So it will stay somewhere in that area.
Yes, that's right. And of course, this is not an exact science. It's very hard to know that even if the inflation rate is in the middle of the target band, that it's going to stay exactly there. But they certainly will consider the fact that just a little sort of sparks of inflation coming up, and it may not cut off. I think it's important though to also remember here that at the current setting of 3.6%, the Reserve Bank does think that the cash rate is restricting the economy, slowing it down. That kind of goes against what you were saying before, the fact that consumption, for example, is picking up a little bit. But of course, consumption is only part of the economy. Business investment is pretty weak as a share of GDP. It's not really much above the levels that was at during recessionary times or the worst of COVID. So that's also part of the mix. And overall GDP is running below 2% at the moment, which is a pretty rate. So although getting better, the economy is certainly not running strongly. So the RBA is not going to kind of keep the brakes on too much. It doesn't feel it needs. So that's the other side of the equation.
Well, the other issue is the jobs figures, which were still around 4.2%. But there are a few jobs being created overall. And I kind of wonder if that's going to continue. And that doesn't tell me that the economy is booming, because companies aren't putting on people. Wondering whether the unemployment rate might rise maybe to 4.6% at some stage.
Yeah, there's certainly again some reasons that you may expect the unemployment rate would rise a little. A lot of the jobs that have been created in the economy in the last probably 2 maybe 3 years have been in the government sector or the health sector, education sector. So and these areas, the jobs growth is so strong, you just wouldn't expect that to continue. And unless the private sector picks up the pace at which it's hiring, then you might expect the labour market to loosen off a little bit. In other words, the unemployment rate could rise. Absolutely. Again, these are probably going to be fairly mild moves, though. And at 4.2%, the unemployment rate is still historically quite low. So even moving up to 4.4, so we don't want to see anyone lose their job, and we don't see anyone unemployed. But in the context of history, that would still be a very good unemployment rate, where most people, not all, but most people who want a job are able to find one. So again, it's really delicate at the moment, fine-tuning the economy, and that's always hard for a central bank to do, because they only of course have that one blunt instrument, which is rate.
Indeed, So I mean, that's interesting because Sarah Hunter, the economist from the RBA, says we're pretty close to full employment at the moment.
Yeah, they're not far away at all. And so even a kind of small increase in unemployment rate, as I say, it's certainly not a slack labour market where there is job losses or not at all. And I think we also have to be careful. We certainly have seen some evidence of some companies in Australia lowering the staff numbers. And again, that's really hard for those individuals involved. But it is the numbers are quite small. From what we can see, there is no kind of mass kind of layoffs happening. At least at this point in time. Do we really believe that there will be unless there's a sort of significant change in events?
Well, what's interesting too is the RBA, like other central banks, including the Fed, are talking about the global uncertainty in the global economy remaining elevated.
That's right. We always have to remember that in context because although things have been remarkably stable actually in terms of the way the domestic economy is operating over this year, there are so many reasons that might not have been the case. And of course, the tariffs in the US, the disruption to supply chain, geopolitical context, even moves in commodity prices in some cases. All of these things could have kind of pushed us or pulled us around a little more than they actually have. And still may. There's no guarantee that the stability that we've seen this year or strength that we've seen in equity markets, which just don't seem to be pressing any bad news at all, continues. There's just no guarantee that will happen, even though this year it's just not been a major factor we've had to think about.
And with the US now facing a shutdown, actually adds to it as well.
Yes, I did kind of watch with some surprise that the equity markets moved forward while the US government shut down. I'm not sure what they consider bad to be. It doesn't seem like anything will sort of dampen the mood of equity investors. But there's certainly not good news. And although there's not a kind of immediate response from the market, and therefore probably not from the macro economy. Once again, if these things continue, it's hard to see a scenario where everything remains sailing. I will also say though that when we've been modelling some results or shocking the tariffs as they have occurred, we find that in most scenarios the Australian economy actually may look a little stronger under the situation because effectively our terms of trade could improve because of the tariffs. In other words, we've got better income coming into the country in terms from this. So it is an interesting one for Australia because in some ways we get a bit of price advantage out of the tariffs, which can actually help our economy. So that's an interesting spanner in the works.
Yeah, indeed. The revenue increased as a result.
Yeah, we have seen government revenue coming stronger, and that to some extent a number of causes that. One is the strong labour market, which pushes wages beyond Treasury thought. But also the commodity prices you're referring to have been strong. The gold price, wow, that's something massive benefit for some of our miners here in Australia. Of course, it means that they're paying more tax. Equally, our oil price is much higher than Treasury have forecast them to be. So that does give us some positive upside surprises on the budget. Although that's as you know, not something unique to this year. That's something we've been enjoying for some time, and it's somewhat manufactured because the Treasury deliberately commodity price forecast low so that it avoids negative surprises
and comes out looking good.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm not sure that's a bad strategy on the part of Treasury. Very hard to forecast, but you would argue that they've under forecasting the price of our major commodity exports for a significant time now.
Well, Sherelle, it'll be fascinating to see how this pans out with the RBA over the next in November, probably February.
As always, we'll be watching every move that they make and every word they say, and particularly the words of the governor. So again, another really interesting few months ahead.
Well, Sherelle, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure, Liam.
So what's happening in the news? Well, President Trump is walking a fine line China right now. Publicly, he's trying to cool tensions, reassure Muscovs. But behind closed doors, he's still keeping pressure on Beijing. It's a tricky balancing act. It's got Wall Street watching closely. Late last week, Trump threatened to slap 100% tariff on Chinese starting November 1st, after Beijing announced new rare earth exports. That move sent US markets tumbling, and Trump even hinted that he might skip his planned meeting with Chinese leader Xi Jinping. But over the weekend, the president's tone started to soften. Trump spoke to Treasury Secretary Scott, another top aide, sending a message. The US wants to de-escalate trade tensions, at least for now. Both sides, it seems, want to turn down the heat. China wants to salvage the plan Xi's later this month, while Trump's team stabilise the market and keep focus on the President's Middle East push, which has been overshadowed by the trade drama. Inside the administration, officials brainstorming tougher responses to China, from targeting Chinese stocks in the US to tightening investment rules and sanctioning firms to Russia's oil trade. But for now, Trump and Percent decided that calm markets takes priority over escalation. On Sunday, Trump struck a more upbeat tone on social media, posting, "Don't worry about China. It will all be fine." Percent has met with Chinese officials, stressing that the US is open to talk, but fully prepared to act if Beijing doesn't ease up. China's response was notably muted. Its Ministry of Commerce to apply the export controls in a prudential and moderate manner, signalling a willingness to back off without losing face. State media coverage of Trump's tariff has also been minimal. Another sign Beijing is trying not to inflame the situation. Still, the underlying issue, the rare export limit, remains unresolved. Beijing is sort of reversing the policy, leaving the door open for another round tit for tat measures. On Monday, the Chinese foreign ministry spokesman warned that if the US insists on its own way, China would fight to the end. For now, US business just hoping both sides pull back. The US and China can choose to spur another cycle of retaliation, or they can choose de-escalation negotiation, said Sean Stein, President of China's Business Council. For the good of the economy, US companies are hoping for the latter. And the US government shutdown is now deep into its third week, and the fallout started to hit the broader economy. With hundreds of thousands of workers missing paychecks and key services shuttered, the effects are spreading far beyond Washington. President Trump and Congress remain locked in a standoff. Republicans control both chambers. The can't break a Senate filibuster to reopen the government. Democrats are insisting that any funding must include protection for health insurance subsidies. In the meantime, the shutdown has already caused flight delays, IRS help closures, and snarling permitting at agencies like the EPA and Transportation Department. About 700,000 workers furloughed, while other, especially national security roles, are still working without pay. Economists warn the longer it drags on, the worse it gets. The last major shutdown, Trump's first lasted 34 days, shaved $11 billion US economic output. When those paychecks dry out, especially for families, that's when the impact starts to spread, said G. William Hoagland of the Bipartisan Policy Centre. It's a slow burn, but it gets worse the longer it lasts. In Australia, the government's finally about to pressure over its controversial superannuation tax plan. Treasurer Jim Chalmers confirmed that he and the Prime Minister have overhauled the proposal, which raised taxes on large retirement balances. The government made two concessions. First, the $3 million threshold, at which earnings are taxed at 30%, will now be indexation, so it doesn't capture people over time. Second, the tax will no longer apply to unrealised capital gains. A new $10 million threshold will also be introduced, where earnings tax at 40%. Around 90,000 accounts will be affected by the $3 million threshold, and about 8,000 by the $10 million one. The policy is set to begin in July 2026. Pending parliamentary approval. While the changes will raise slightly less money in the short term, they'll raise significantly less over time due to indexation. It's a fairer, more sustainable version of what we promised, Chalmers said. Australia's cybersecurity officials issued a stark warning. Criminals are weaponising AI, and it's about to make hacking harder to detect. Lieutenant General Michelle McGuinness, the National Cybersecurity Coordinator with major banks and over 1,000 last week, amid growing alarms about cyber attacks. Her comments followed devastating targeting Qantas, where hackers published personal data from nearly 6 million customers after the airline refused to pay ransom demands. The group behind the attack, known as Scattered Lapses Dollar Hunters, has also targeted giant Toyota, Disney and McDonald's. AI will supercharge these things and get us warned. Scams will sound more professional, personal, and much harder to spot. According to the Australian Directorate's annual report, cyber attacks are now happening at an unprecedented scale, with one incident reported every 6 minutes last year. More than 40% of major incidents came compromised accounts using stolen usernames and passwords. And China hackers are also reportedly exploiting Australia's home internet connection smart devices to launch global attacks. Once access is gained, said ASD Director General Bradshaw, criminals mimic legitimate users' data, install rants and take over accounts. The average cyber in Australia lost $33,000 last year. And Australia's telecom companies are under pressure after a sharp rise in complaints about service reliability. The Telecommunications Ombudsman, the TIO, reported nearly 58,000 complaints over the past year, with mobile issues making up almost half of them. That's up 4% from the year before. Much of the frustration stems from massive September outage, which disrupted over 600 000 calls and has been linked to 3 deaths. The outage sparked calls for a national telecom outage to help track reliability problems. TIO Chief Cynthia Gettler said consumers increasingly depend on mobile service for daily life, banking, work, even accessing government support. When it doesn't work, people are frustrated, she said. And the recent tragic events have shown what's at stake. While complaints against Telstra fell slightly, both Telstra and Optus remain the sources of customer grievances. The industry is now under pressure to make networks more resilient, especially as Australia transitions fully to 4G and 5G. An ANZ Chief Executive Matt facing immediate skepticism about his ambitious plan to turn the laggard lender into one of the best performing banks in the country, with analysts and investors describing a 5-year strategy as either difficult or impossible to achieve. Matters on Monday cancelled $800 million buyback, promised to cut $800 million in costs, accelerate integration of the newly acquired banking division, and hire many business and mortgage bankers. He hopes this will make ANZ operate as official Commonwealth Bank, the country's largest bank, and significantly improve its profitability. Brokers have been left unconvinced, however. We're sceptical that the plan can be executed in full, and believe management face a number of challenges in execution, said Goldman Sachs' Brent Sproul, who expects profits to be $1 billion below target by 2028. John Mott, a veteran banking analyst now at Joey, described ANZ's targets courageous, adding, we can't get to those numbers. Quite simply, history shows that Australian banks can either take costs out or grow revenue, but never both. Right to its clients. Given ANZ the benefit of costs, but expect to miss revenue. And that's it for this week. And next week Dr. Drews, the founder of Judy Chocolate Factory. We'll be talking about how he's made organic in the southern hemisphere and how they create chocolate around that. It's the most sprayed food we eat, and it's healthier than conventional chocolate being organic. And I'll be talking to AMP Chief Shane Oliver about whether we can expect the Melbourne rate cut, about the impact of tariffs on the pharmaceutical industry, and the impact of the US shutdown. For the most exclusive access to business leaders from around the world, subscribe to Business from my website or whatever your podcast platform is. If you like to business, please leave us a review with Apple Podcasts, and please give us a 5-star rating to make it easier for people to find business. Thank you in advance. In the meantime, find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. If you want to contact, email at leon@leon.gettler.com. Answer all emails. Also my spare time. I've a copywriting business. If anyone needs blogs, articles, or editorial, email me. Looking forward to the next episode of Business next week.